Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here to talk about how you can win the hour and win the day. We are talking with Kris Ward. We are going to be talking about time management, but also maybe avoiding some of the cliches and some of the ways that we may have been led astray and comparing everyone else's outsides to our insides and thinking that, oh, I need to be working 26 hours a day. And some things work, some things don't. So we will talk about what works and what can work for you. So Kris, glad to be talking to you.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, Robert. Thank you.
And thank you for being here. And yeah, this time management stuff, I mean, I enjoy talking about it. I always go back and forth. Like sometimes I don't get as much done as I think I need to. And then I have to go back to some of those basics. But some of those things are just so simple that have helped me so much over the years. Like, don't check email all the time. Don't have your phone there for the text messages popping up all the time. Have somewhat of a calendar so that way you can maybe plan and strategize for the future. And maybe in the moment, it feels like you're setting up like limitations for yourself, but in reality, it kind of frees you up more because you don't let those distractions and those unknowns in the days control you. So yeah, about time management and what you teach and what you do, what has you excited these days. I mean, tell me about it. What's going on?
Okay. Oh my gosh. We could start a 6-part Netflix series here. Okay. Where to start? Well, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur like everybody else. I have had, been a marketing strategist for over 12 years. And I grinded it out like everyone else those first couple of years. And I'm not kidding you. If you read my book, Win the Hour, Win the Day, there's numerous tales of there that include everything from what would be deemed to be a serious kitchen fire to almost electrocuting myself because I was in such a rush. So what happened for me was I finally looked one day and I thought, this is nuts. I can't keep it up at this pace. People around me were telling me that apparently when I was going, years without proper sleep, that I wasn't as charming as I thought I was. So it was starting to wear in on everybody else. So I finally really just turned it around and said, okay, let's examine this feverishly. And let's dive into some stuff that's really going to make a difference. Productivity, team building, all this stuff. And I did that. And I went from 16-hour days down to 6. And you know what? I'm lucky I did, because it was a couple years after that my husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer. And I was pulled away from the business for a couple of years. And what I would tell you is when I returned after his passing, my existing clients had no idea of my absence. They knew of nothing. I didn't feel it was good for business. We were very positive about his journey. So it was just not something that, was helpful to be, sharing a lot about. So they did not know I was away. And so then they started asking me, like, how did I manage that? Because aside from the business and the demands of somebody going through that with chemo and appointments, all this stuff, we also were very positive people, and we planned trips and did all kinds of special things. We wanted to make our time purposeful, assuming the doctors are wrong. And if they weren't wrong, oh my gosh, then our time was limited. So then these existing clients start asking me more and more questions. I start working with them about team building and productivity. And it really just blossomed from there. Then I wrote the book, and I really want to create a movement where your business should support your life, not consume it. So that's where it all started. And I'll let you throw some questions at me of which way you wanted to go with this.
Okay. Yeah. You've given me lots to choose and pick on and things like that. And so, yeah, I like that idea there that, your business helps you, and your business is a thing that like enhances your life. It's not a thing that you yourself serve. And also that part that you mentioned there is something that like, it's been on my mind maybe the last month or two, that idea of like the positivity where I feel like it took me until I got to a certain age to really like wrap my head around that, because it's really easy to like be associated with negative people. And sometimes it's like, almost like, I don't know, like when you're young, being negative, you feel like you're smart, right? You feel like you're pointing out the things no one else points out. But like at the end of the day, that doesn't really help you. And then at some point you feel like, well, there's the hesitation of being too positive because you think, well, maybe I'm being ignorant of reality, right? Like you said, with you and your late husband, there's like the chemo journey, and you guys were still taking vacations, but that's definitely different from, say, if you like completely ignored it, right? And so can you maybe like talk about that, or have you noticed anyone like having those kinds of struggles with there's the positivity, but it's almost like so simple, it's easy not to follow it. And it's also easy to kind of misinterpret that, positivity isn't having your head in the sand.
No, I don't think it is, but I think at any given moment, there are reasons to be happy and there's reasons to be fed up. And so you have to choose. I believe you choose the energy that you bring into the room. And I guess if you're going to, focus on that journey I went through with John, I would say to you, during that, I realized there were so many things that I thought were problems and weren't problems. So when you're going to a doctor's appointment and you don't know if they're going to tell him he's got 2 months left to live, what all I'm thinking about in the drive is how am I going to put a spin on that on the way home? Like, what am I going to say? What's my cheer up speech? Like, oh, they say you'll be quick. Like, what do you do? So all of a sudden I looked at all these things that I thought were problems before, and none of them were problems. They're temporary irritants. So to me, positivity is about living in the moment. It is about appreciation. You do come from a better working position when you're positive, because then you can focus on the solution instead of the problem. And that really aids you in your business. And so, I'm not about putting my head in the sand, but I am about, there is always something to be appreciative of. That's my philosophy.
I like that a lot. And we always hear about that. And that's, again, one of those things where you hear it so much, but then you need to sometimes repeatedly like keep training your brain to do the right thing in that living in the moment, and like, don't like stress so much and plan the what ifs. And I really like what you said there of like, a lot of problems are not actually problems, right? I mean, imagine if you were late somewhere and stuck in traffic and you're stressing out about that. Well, that's not the real problem. Or imagine if, you couldn't find a parking spot and that ruins your whole day. I mean, that's not the right thing to be focusing on. And I mean, you make it sound so simple, right? But I mean, some of these things can be simple if we let them be. And so as far as like you and your like, I'm curious about your system, right? Because before we started recording, we were talking about like we were both giggling a little bit, right? About the 5 a.m. Like miracle morning lifestyle, all that sort of stuff, where they say, well, you have to wake up like early. And you know what? Some days and some weeks, I do like to do little spurts and little sprints of like shifting my hours and changing things up and, having crunch time, but that's definitely not a sustainable every single day lifestyle. So I'm really curious, like, do you have like a specific, like, bullet point system, structure, guidelines sort of thing for being productive, managing our time?
Okay, well, there's a number of things I could talk quickly on and dive into anyone that you like. So what I would tell you is I'm all about creating your win team, what I call your what is next team, so that you can get to what is next. And really with that team comes systems. And in our signature program, we call that saving yourself stress, time, energy, and money. Because why did you start your business? You didn't start your business to get trapped in the admin work and then work so many hours that you decrease your hourly pay to something that's not permissible by law, right? So you started it because you wanted the freedom of creation, and you had these ideas. You want to have a bigger impact. You want to do all this stuff. Maybe you want to spend, this is my favorite, maybe you want to spend more time with your family, ha, 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 right? So that's why you started a business. And so what I would tell you is really, it is all about creating your win team, because this badge of honor that we wear, where we beat our chests and say, oh my gosh, I worked so hard for many years throughout my life. I mean, I said this to my mom once. I said, who knew I'd have to unlearn that working hard is not a compliment, right? Oh, she's a hard worker. Oh, she worked so hard. Hello, shoulders back. Look at me. I'm a hard worker. And that grinding it out, that's just misnomers from people that you believe are further ahead in the journey than you. And I will tell you that anyone that you professionally admire at any level, all they do is they get ideas to execution. And how they do that, it's because they have a team. And a team can be super lean, super small, extremely affordable. It's more than just having a VA, because a VA is just somebody you're trying to manage and dump work on. So a lot of people I work with think they have a team because they have a VA, but it's really about the infrastructure and the systems that are really easily put in play. And it's a simple strategy. But until you do that, you really are what I call a sufferpreneur. You're a solopreneur suffering. And it's like being someone watching sports on TV and you think, oh, I'm an athlete. No, you're watching sports. You're sitting on the couch, right? You're eating chips. So, and I don't mean that in a judgment way. I just mean that being a sufferpreneur or solopreneur is really expensive, time consuming, draining, and it's got some really bad consequences when you get to the end of that journey. So I would tell you that it's all about your team. I would tell you, when you do that, you have freedom in your lifestyle. Like, I actually just get up when I wake up. Now, I generally wake up sometimes if I'm really lucky, I call it lucky, I wake up around 5:30, but lots of times I sleep into 7. I do work out. I do think that you should treat yourself as a business athlete. So that's the first thing I do in the morning, is a workout. But really, it's about, your rhythm and your lifestyle and your family, and then making sure that your business supports your life instead of consuming it.
Well, super cool. Well, what I'm hearing from you right now is how important it is for us to be self-aware, and with all those different levels, right? There's like the self-awareness of your body and waking up, but then there's also that self-awareness, like the suckerpreneur you said. And what that reminds me of is like when I got started, when I was like 17, 18 years old, I had some good months and some bad months. And some months were, $2,000 was good back then, and $200 was bad back then. And I was afraid to do that calculation you said of looking at that hourly rate, looking at that hourly pay. And sometimes like we do kind of delude ourselves, right? And we do have to get the train rolling and get that business built. But then sometimes it can be discouraging to say, whoa, like if I actually calculated like all this time I'm putting in and all this money and all the money that's going out the door to all this, you're like, whoa, that's a very low hourly rate there. And so, yeah, but you did say that, okay, so a team means all these different things, right? It doesn't mean just one assistant, and also means like the tools and things like that. And what that reminds me of is as soon as I started realizing a couple of these things, that like, first of all, I couldn't do it all myself. And that also I needed these things like, joint venture partners and affiliates and like other people involved, not just employees, but employees help. But then also there were like the tools, like the autoresponder and things like that. There were times like maybe in like my college years where I would be weeks ahead of time, and it felt so good. And it's kind of like you're talking about, where sometimes you can sleep in, or if you're not feeling it that day, you can take the day off because you're so many weeks ahead, and the email scheduled out, or the things set up way ahead of time. And so can you talk about how all of us can maybe tap into some of that? Because I feel a heck of a lot better when I have things done way ahead before they need to be done, or sometimes just like thinking more about the future and thinking more about the creative stuff, sort of like how we're saying how we'd love to be the business owner, the entrepreneur who is kind of focusing on the big picture. So have you struggled with like shifting from the work to the big picture, or do you have any advice to help us tap into that?
Well, you mentioned a couple of really important things. So first of all, I love the compliment of talking about being self-aware, but what I would say is what I was addressing earlier is self-care. If we are a business athlete, we are the number one tool in our business. So if you don't take care of yourself, and if you're exhausted, I mean, there's so much science to show what the brain does when it's tired. We all know that, right? So it doesn't work. Your brain is a big component of the business. And when you start the day tired, you're at a huge deficit. So there's that. Then you also spoke about some months in the beginning where you're doing well financially, and other months you weren't. And what I would tell you is that because you had inconsistency, you didn't have a team, so you didn't have anything at play where you could rely upon it. So what was likely happening is you're doing it all yourself. You get some new business, you get all excited, you get caught up in the onboarding of that consumes your time. Then when that peters out, that's not the time to go get new business. You should have been doing that a while ago, but you didn't have any systems in play. So you're going from feast to famine all the time, right? So that's a big thing, what I would talk about. And when you have a team, what happens is it's not just me. It's not just the fact that, my philosophy is my team manages me, I don't manage them. It's not just that I become more efficient, but when you do this well, they become more efficient. So the tasks, let's say that, if there's 10 tasks, now they've got them down to 7, and they've got room to be creative, because we're always going to be doing new things, writing a book, doing a podcast, writing another book. I mean, these are my ambitions. I don't know what you guys are having out there, but what the whole idea of being an entrepreneur is the creation stage. So it should be set up so that your team relieves you of repetitive tasks or admin responsibilities, so that you will always be conquering that next creation. Like for me, I was so excited when I got my book out, Win the Hour, Win the Day. And, but now of course I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta get the second book out. I want it to be a 3-part series. Like no longer, I thought that was such a big accomplishment, but all it did was whet my appetite for the next thing. So as an entrepreneur, you want to have a bigger impact. You want to leverage your income and also your experience. You want to share it with other people. You've got all these creative juices. So if you have a team, and you guys out there, check out really quickly www.freegiftfromkris.com. There's a number of giveaways there for you that will help you sort of wrap your mind about what that team aspect looks like. Because if you have that, then you're not the bottleneck and you're not just recycling admin work. You didn't start your business just to pay overhead and do all the run a business. You started it to create stuff and have a freedom of creation and lifestyle. So that's really what I would tell you need to be focusing on it's not all the little stuff. Even when you mentioned some of the tools where you can say, okay, you can transcribe or auto respond, that would be still something else my team manages, right? So it's about the creation.
And I'm kind of having a lot of light bulb moments, especially how you mentioned at the beginning of there's so many things we need to unlearn, right? Like you had to unlearn being a hard worker, and especially the past 6 or 12 months, I've been experiencing that myself. Like I've been going from having just 1 or 2 employees to now I think there's like 6 or 7. So there's like just a whole different way of thinking and trying to let go of saying, well, I could jump in really quick and load up this software and do this thing. But sometimes it's better to be, I don't know if ignorance the right word, but it's like that, the Henry Ford thing where like he was on trial or something and he said like, well, I don't know anything about making a car, but I could push this button and then this person walks in the room and we have this conversation. So it seems like, and it's like so much to unlearn of like being a couple of levels removed from what actually needs to be done. So that way, number one, you don't have all that in your head. And number two, your employees, your team kind of has the freedom to they themselves be creative. And so you mentioned free gift from Kris.com. And can you tell us about some of these other resources that you have, like how we can get the book, how we can find out more about you, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. The book is on Amazon, or you can just check out our website, www.winthehour.wintheday.com. I'm on all the socials. Reach out to me, tell me that you heard me on this fantastic podcast. And yeah, I think you bring up some really good points, Robert. It's not about removing yourself, like when Henry Ford talked about that. I mean, we're all so dependent on the advances and the science of Apple. Where would we be if Steve Jobs was still in the garage trying to figure it all himself? Like being an entrepreneur, somehow we got that confused with the labor aspect of it. Or you think once you arrive, climb up that mountain far enough and make enough money that then you'll have a team. But I work with a lot of people who on paper make a lot of money, but because their system is very flawed, or they get desperate in a pinch and they hire somebody that's too expensive because they didn't have an infrastructure or a system in there, they eats up all their profits. So really it is the backbone. An effective team is the backbone to any success story you've ever heard anywhere, but especially business. So it's being the orchestra or the what's the I just forgot the symphony guy that directs the orchestra. What's his name? Oh, well, now I'll have
Maestro.
to check. Yes, the maestro, or he doesn't have to play all the instruments, but he makes powerful music, right? So that's what your job is. The conductor. That's trained.
Oh,
so I don't
there
know.
we go. Even better. And it's like a lot of these things are counterintuitive, like you said, to avoid the feast and famine. Sometimes you need to be maybe like hunting before you're hungry, or if that's the right term. And so, so there's so much for us to think about. So free gift from Kris.com and wintheday.com. And as we're wrapping up, winding down, I know we talked about all kinds of different subjects, but is there something that you see out there that so many people are missing the boat on, and that it would be so easy to fix if only they were aware of this just super widespread common mistake you're seeing everywhere? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think people think that, I have to create these really complicated systems before I hire somebody and stuff like that. And as much as I talk about those systems that are in play and really important, they have to be finessed and they have to be, built out so that they're leveraged. But if you're just solopreneuring it right now, you think, okay, at least I'll start with a VA and then I'll start reading up on what these systems are about. Something as simple as you can screen capture your whatever you're doing. You say, okay, I need to do this, screen capture it, or shoot a 30-second video on your screen and then have somebody else do that. If you think, oh no, I'm the only one that knows how to do it, what I'm talking about, what I want people to understand is this stuff is all, it's not rocket science and it's not expensive, but it is strategic. It has to be done in a certain order. But it's so much simpler when you cross over this barrier and realize, oh, wow, I was working so hard for so long and I was working against myself. That's what breaks my heart. That's why I want to create a movement where your business supports your life instead of consuming it.
I love it. Well, this is awesome, and so many other things that you mentioned here, like even that screen capture thing. It's so simple. It's
Yeah.
something that we all could do, and what just is going through my mind right now is, when I make sure to listen to podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that just to get new ideas and change my thinking, because it's so easy to get trapped in the same old way of thinking, and sometimes we're our own worst enemy in that way. So that's why people like you are so helpful to break us out of our shell and to kind of do things differently, because that way we can get the different results and we can actually get to that destination and then other future destinations that we've always wanted to get to. So free gift from Kris.com and winthehour.com. We will see everyone there. And any final parting words, or just say goodbye?
Just thank you for sharing your lovely audience with me. Thanks, guys, for listening in.
All right.